Let me introduce Mike Durglo. He's the Tribal Historic Preservation Department head for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. And not to use up any of his time, I'm just going to ask him to share his screen and unmute and take it away. Mike, good to have you. Good to meet you.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks, Doug. I think Doug took up more than half of my time, so he has to buy the donuts next time, right? From the beginning.
Well, wait a minute. We're pretty much on schedule, so please take your 12 minutes. Thanks.
Het kwak speciaal. Het je Sweetsum het Louis kwaks. Kisu quicknum oxmaknik kaklik kawska klautla. Good morning, everybody. My name is Standing Grizzly Bear. My English name is Mike Durglo. Glad to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. Doug shared a lot about the Western science of climate change. I'm going to share what I share is my cultural. The TEK, as the buzzword is now, the traditional ecological knowledge and the impacts on our culture and our foods and our medicines that is happening throughout, we're talking about the North Central climate or the North Central region. So we're kind of the westernmost part of that region, right? I used to serve as the chairman of the Regional Tribal Operations Committee, EPA Region 8. Many of the same tribes that you're talking about are in that region. So very familiar with the tribal impacts and the cultural impacts to the region. We are located in Northwest Montana. The reservation is 1.3 million acres. And that spot right there is the bison range, is now green. As most of you know, it's back in our part of our lands. So we're located about 3 hours from Canada, about 2.5 hours from Idaho, Northwest Montana, in God's country, right, Doug? God's country. Flathead Lake, one of the largest natural freshwater lakes west of the Mississippi on the reservation. So in the process of developing our climate strategy, we were one of the first tribes to do that. I started that process in 2012, and I think Swinomish was the first, and then Nez Perce was working on theirs when I started our process, and really felt like it's so important for us to really take into consideration and really listen to the knowledge of our elders. And what our elders are telling us is that, and we know this, I mean, and everybody, it's not just tribal people that know these things. Everybody, we know that we're connected to the land, and the land is part of us. So our lands and our resources are the basis for our spiritual life and our life ways. That's been that way since the beginning of time. And one of the reasons we are preparing for the changes is so that we can survive into the future. Our traditions and our culture rely on abundant populations of fish, wildlife, plants, communities, clean air, water, undisturbed spiritual places. I'm not going to read all these things, but you guys understand what and a lot of times I feel like, probably Doug too and Molly, we're kind of preaching to the choir here. Almost everybody in this workshop here has been involved in some way in climate change work over the past century. I think what we should do is probably go drag 10 people that are deniers into the room, and they have to sit here and listen to us, right? One of the, I think the most special things about the work that I've done in climate change was interviewing our elders. I don't call them interviews no more. I call them recorded visits. But my dad was one of those elders, and uh, I I interviewed or I visited with 8 elders during that year, that process, and seven of those elders are gone. They're no longer with us, including my dad. Um, and I've heard different people say that, what, when an elder passes, a library burns down. And I honestly believe that. I mean, it's like there's so much knowledge and wisdom there. And my dad talked about the concern for our medicines and our plants up in higher elevations, and we would go up in the woods every fall and collect our medicines with my dad and my family. We still do that, but it's not quite the same. Whoop. Ig Couture, he's Kootenai from Elmo. He talked about bitterroot, and he said that our bitterroot are in trouble. We only pick them for a week or two out of the year, and if you lose that time, you just can't go out there. There's not another chance to go do it. So it's real important, and we're seeing those changes occur throughout the landscape, the whole reservation. Different plants. Some plants are coming in early in the spring. Some plants are coming late in the fall or later in the summer. So things are, changing definitely. And that for us, our whole lifeways kind of, um, circled around that the seasonal round is what they call it. There are certain times of the year when we go do certain things, like dig bitterroot or camas. And camas, both bitterroot and camas are very important traditional foods for our people. Um, this is, and again, this is not just tribal people, but living in harmony with each other in the land. Um, Understanding that our ancestors hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. So where was I? Protecting Mother Earth and repaying the land for its gifts. That's the same as I said earlier, reciprocity. Cultural resources of the tribes are being lost, substantially altered, or destroyed. And again, we're seeing this happening across the reservation. Um, years ago, I remember uh, some folks coming in so that the first Wednesday of the month, the Salish, Kalispel, Pondere elders meet, and the second Wednesday, the Kootenai elders meet. And I remember somebody coming into the elders meeting and asking if they could plant camas where on their property, and the elders said absolutely not. That was like 10 or 15 years ago. Because it takes away the spiritual, the power, of the plant when you take them from one place. Can you guys see me? I can't see. Jane, can you see me?
I can see you. Yes.
I, I don't know what happened, but I used to be able to see participants on the side, but I can only see you. Anyway, that's fine. Um, So when those folks came into the elders meeting and asked if they could plant, I remember if it was just camas or huckleberries or whatever, and the elder said, no, you can't do that because it takes that spirit away. Now, you know, here we are 10 or 15 years later, and we're seeing a lot of those places where there was camas, there's no camas there no more, or bitterroot. However, like 3 years ago, they did a control burn up in, it's called Jocko Prairie, and I remember, so all my life, Jocko Prairie, we hunted, we fished, we gathered, we camped there, and it wasn't until 3 years ago that they did a control burn on Jocko Prairie. The next spring, it was just blue with camas, just like, that's not Jocko Prairie there, but that picture on the left, it was kind of like that. I was like, amazing, because I never, in all the years I've been up there, I've never seen camas there until they burned. So it's been waiting down in the ground all these years for uh, the right things to happen. White bark pine is something that we really most recently, well, so white bark pine has always been in the forest management plan, part of the plan. However, it wasn't until we went through the process of developing our climate strategic plan that white bark pine came higher up on the priority list, because we then understood how important it is, not only for snowpack retention and climate change impacts, but also for our own food source. Historically, we gathered and we ate white bark pine seeds, along with like 100 different animals that rely on white bark pine seeds for food source. And I don't know if you all know about white bark pine, but it's high elevation, slow growing, and it really takes a long time for them to start growing even seeds. And part of our diet used to be those seeds. Now there's a massive die out there. Actually, I think there's an effort to list them as an endangered species. We have been doing some restoration work. We're part of the National Restoration, White Bark Pine Restoration work group or whatever. So right now, in our tribal greenhouse, there's like 30,000 white bark pine seedlings growing that they'll be putting out in the woods in the next couple of years. So there's like little babies right now, but they have to grow in the greenhouse for like 2 years before they can put them out in the woods. And Doug mentioned this a couple times. I mean, we've been seeing this more and more in recent years, and climate change and just the way we manage our forest. 100 years of fire suppression plus climate change has really caused a lot of problems for us in dealing with these wildfires. White bark pine, like I said, has been come higher up on the priority list for us. This tree right here is on top of Three Lakes Peaks, and I named this tree my Adlawia. My Adlawia means my great-great-grandparent. And this is a whole group of people that we brought up from University of Montana and others, because in this area, the forestry department and the BLM and foresters have worked to identify plus trees, which are healthy trees, and they collect the cones and they send those seeds to the lab for genetic testing. And those are the seeds that they're grown in the lab. But my Alawia, we think this tree is around close to 2,000 years old. So it's pretty old, pretty special, kind of like my medicine tree. It was a couple of years we talked about this tree before I actually went up and got to put my hands on it.
Hey, Mike, I think we've lost your shared slides. I'd love to see the
Oh.
tree. Could you reshare your screen?
Let's see.
I know it is.
I don't even see. I don't have. Okay.
Okay. Oh, well, listen, don't, because we do have your PDF and we'll share it with people. But I'd love to see that. I want to tell you that the thought too that you have 30,000 baby white bark pine ready to go back into the field is a heartwarming thought, as well as an ecologically positive thought. But let me let you wrap up. I know that this technology sometimes doesn't work all that. I think maybe you're coming back. Yeah, why don't you go ahead? That's great. Go ahead to that to your last slide. Oh, great. Thanks. Oh, there it is. Go back one. Thank you so much for getting to that. I didn't want to miss seeing the group and the tree. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yep. And this is Stephen Small Salmon. He's the one elder I shared with you that he's still with us. He's still coming to our gatherings, our climate. We're actually having our first in-person Earth Day gathering on this Friday since COVID. So you're all welcome to join us. Space is limited, and Doug's bringing donuts.
Doug's Baking Donuts. Michael, thanks so much for that inspiring
Thank you.
presentation. And save your questions, and we'll have a few minutes before the end of the session to chat about things.